Hey guys, and welcome back to the show. I am your host, Megan Hardy, and today I am joined by a very special guest who was actually a part of the same fitness business coaching program as me when I was just starting my business at Fitness Uncharted, when Fitness Uncharted was just a wee little baby. And today I have the opportunity to talk with Shannon. Shannon is a functional nutrition and metabolism specialist and a personal trainer who helps women restore their metabolisms, balance their hormones, and heal their guts. With over 10 years in the industry, she saw a gap that needed to be filled when it came to addressing women's chronic health conditions and weight loss resistance. And Shannon really, she bridges the gap between traditional macros and fitness training and then pairs that with functional health and lab testing to get clients to feel amazing from the inside. And one really cool thing is Shannon's kind of been in a lot of her clients' shoes, a lot of women's shoes, as someone who she went from actually winning a bodybuilding show to being crippled with autoimmune disease and unable to walk to now being medication free and feeling amazing. So she knows firsthand how important it is to not only address the way you look on the outside, but the way you feel on the inside too. So, Shannon, without further ado, welcome to the show.
What an intro. Yes.
Welcome, welcome. And one thing I have to ask you too with because I think I had forgotten or hadn't realized that you had competed in the past. And so I always have to ask because people ask me like, "Oh, are you planning to compete?" whatever, and I always have a canned response ready to go, but I would love to know, would you ever even consider competing again?
Oh, absolutely not. It was a one and done. I got, nationally certified or qualified, and that was it. My life turned upside down after my show. And the thing is, competing has its place. It's great. Knowing what it does to your body and how hard I work to get my body back to health. I could do it differently now and definitely be in a better place. But I also just don't really love trying to just look away for certain judges. Like I just want to feel good.
Yeah.
Like, it's body composition's cool. My ripped abs were cool, but like it's so much better now. Like when you realize how good you feel, like you don't want to ever go back. Like, you know what I mean? So,
Yes.
no,
Yes, that's when I get asked like, "Oh, are you trying to compete? Or are you going to compete?" I'm like, "No," and I'm like one of my responses because I'm like I'm really happy with where my hormones are at. Like I feel good, and I don't want to mess that up. Which I know there are ways you can do it strategically, and we help some clients who are trying to compete do it the best way possible for their hormones. But it's still like it's a commitment. I one of my coaches who works with me, like she just loves competing and loves the sport. And I'm like, I think that's great. But I'm like, for me, I'm like, I just don't love it that much enough to do it.
it once you find balance, like I love the freedom. It's like, oh, I don't want to work out this week. That's fine. I don't, I want to eat a little bit off, whatever. Like it allows just I don't know. I think you don't realize how mentally screwy it kind of makes you for a while, because you're just in the thick of it and it's your normal. But especially with a kid, right, and a baby and going through breastfeeding and probably wanting another one, it's like my days are probably over for that department. But definitely, if you're going to compete, I highly, highly, highly suggest you get a good qualified coach. And you work with that coach pre and post. Please don't like win your show and then ignore everything like I did as a very newbie person, because you'll screw your body up and it takes a lot to kind of rebound from. So, definitely
Yes.
crapping on the profession. Like it is very cool, but work with a good coach.
That's why I say I'm like, I was actually talking with someone the other day about it. And I was like, it's even more important, I feel, post show to be working with the coach so that you don't hit that crazy rebound and to help balance your hormones out again after. I'm like, just as important as it is or to get ready for competition day, I'm like, post show is like equally, if not more important.
Because I gained 15 pounds in 2 weeks and I like started experiencing all of my issues very rapidly. Like as you said, like I literally started walking with a cane. Like mine's dramatic story, right? Like, but I couldn't even walk without 5 leaves a day. I couldn't eat anything. Like everything just started getting really rapidly horrible. And it was like that was the trigger. It was just like not reversing properly. Um, and lots of donuts and baklava. For some reason, I really craved baklava post show. Like I never craved black. I wanted all the baklava. Like
That is so random. I love it.
I know. But anyways,
Well, and before we jump into the topic, but did you find that your autoimmune was, I mean, I know sometimes it's like which came first, the chicken or the egg, but like did you feel like some of that was triggered by the competition prep?
oh, 1,000%.
Mhm.
1,000%. And like this could be a whole nother topic we talk about, but it's like I ignored all of my body's warning signs for aesthetics. And like that's why I'm so passionate now about this. It's because like people will push their body to the limit until their body literally can't do it anymore. And then it just breaks and very rapidly. Right. And so it's like, I wish I could go back to my younger self and just be like, hey, look at all these things going wrong. I was already in a bad position. And then I thought, what would be the best thing for me when I'm not seeing results and feeling bad? Probably doing a bodybuilding competition. Like,
Yeah.
no, somebody would have told me, like, don't do that. Like, do it this way. Right. Um, but it didn't matter because I wanted abs and a nice ass. So,
Yeah. Don't we all? It's like, oh, nothing else matters. I just want abs and a nice ass.
and like it's that glute hand tie in. That was nice. It would last for like 2 weeks, but it was there. So, but hormone imbalances that drive also autoimmune disease or vice versa, right? It's like um it's this chronic dieting, this over stress, like those are the foundations, and it might not hit you now, but it will catch up to you later on in some regard. And sometimes it's not my dramatic of a story where it's like, okay, suddenly you can't walk. Suddenly my whole body's riddled with inflammation. Like I couldn't put my shoes and socks on. Like it was rough. Like I was in the emergency room multiple times because I couldn't even get out of bed on my own. Like, but it might show up as starting to have some headaches. It might show up as like maybe your period gets a little more painful. It might show up as just being more tired than usual. It doesn't always have to be something full blown. Like, and that's what we'll talk about with just hormones in general is like things that are off, pay attention to it. That's your body's red flags, right? Like, you don't want to just
Mhm.
until it's so bad that you seek help and then you go down the rabbit hole of traditional medicine and get help probably. And then like, we'll get into that. Uh,
Yeah. Well, that's like the saying like of, it's like people don't listen to the whispers until their body's screaming at them. Like your body will give you cues, but most of us ignore them until it's like, okay, now I can't ignore it. Like I can't walk.
yeah. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think get into just coaching in general. And it's like so many people don't want to hire a coach until it's like bad enough where they're like, okay, well now I have to. Again, I've been there, like I get it. I wanted to save my money, not invest. I was like, I can do this on my own. And it wasn't until things got so bad I seeked out extra help. But it's like I spent years and a lot more money on the back end trying to fix things. Had I just invested the right way beforehand, I would have had a different trajectory of many years of my life. So, um,
hmm Yeah, that's why I'm like, I totally get it too. I'm like, my pride is like, I can do this myself. But I'm like, in every area of life where I've hired a coach, like it's gotten one, like my timeline was way shorter of fixing whatever the problem was. And then also the more coaches I've hired over time, I'm like, the easier it's gotten because I'm like, okay, I could do this on my own, but like it'll be a better result and a faster result if I just get help from someone. So
well, and you take the emotional, like when we do it ourselves too, it's a very emotional process. And have somebody else kind of taking a bird's eye view, they can kind of point out your blind spots, right? Like with business coaching, health coaching, I think it's important. We don't sometimes realize certain things that we're doing that are negatively impacting us, not only physiologically, but like mentally. So,
yes. Yes, absolutely. Well, so what we wanted to talk about today, or what I'm going to pick your brain on today, is like warning signs of a hormone imbalance, which you're already starting to get into a little bit. And then also how to optimize your hormones naturally to boost your metabolism for good. I know hormones are a really hot topic right now. Everyone's like super interested in hormone health and everyone thinks they have a hormone imbalance and thinks they need lab testing and thinks they, it's like, oh, it must be my hormones. Like that's just the big thing. So I would love if you would first share with us just warning signs of a potential hormone imbalance, what that would look like or what people should look out for.
Yeah. So before I get into that, I kind of want to follow up with what you just said because like it is a really hot topic right now. And everybody thinks, oh, I'm not seeing progress. I have a hormone imbalance. And everybody is just using that trigger word. But like, I also hate when coaches are like, or people are like, I have a hormone imbalance. Okay, but like, which one? Like there's so many, right? Like, yes, you have your estrogen, you have your progesterone, you have your testosterone, those are popular ones, but you have insulin, you have GLP-1, you have, human growth factor, you have like all these different cortisol. Oh my God, cortisol is like the biggest one that people are paying attention to. You have this leptin, you have this ghrelin, like all these things are part of your hormone. So it's like, okay, but like what? What's actually wrong? And I think it's going to come down, like I wanted to talk today to kind of just make it digestible for people listening to this, because sometimes you go down this rabbit hole of hormones and it's confusing and people don't know where to start. And so, you know, hopefully this clears things up for a lot of you guys. But anyways, yeah, I
Yeah.
just,
We love digestible. We love like, what is it? Like talk to me like I'm a like second grader, Like that's what I need personally. So.
well, I think it's, again, it's not, that it can get complicated. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying it, a lot of people listening to this right now, it's like, you're too stressed out, you're not eating enough, and like you don't sleep. Like, let's look at that first, and then we can kind of dive into it. Anyways, I'm getting off track. The biggest thing
Yeah.
that like need to kind of focus on, as it comes to just hormones, I think the biggest thing that comes that at least we deal with is like rapid weight gain. That kind of seemingly happens out of nowhere, right? Like that's a big sign. Um, we can get into this a little bit more and it's like, okay, is it really nothing that happened? Or do we just suddenly start adding in more bites here and there? Do we suddenly stop tracking, suddenly start adding in more foods that are more emotionally driven, right? Like there's definitely that factor too. But a lot of people, it's like, hey, nothing in my life changed. Also, trauma or some traumatic event, guys. Like if you had some stressful event in your life and your cortisol's out of whack, like that's a big driver. Um, but if you're noticing that, that's definitely sign something's off, right? Um, it could be cortisol, as I mentioned, it could be thyroid, it could be our sex hormones, are definitely off. Um, but a lot of people who come to us having gained this weight rapidly are like, nothing happened, but also I can't lose it like I used to, right? Like they come
Hmm.
to us, I used to just be able to diet and exercise, like, but suddenly that's not working anymore.
Hmm.
So that's probably the biggest one I see. Would you agree with just like people that come to,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and especially for our perimenopause or menopause ladies. And like you said, there are some times where it's like, okay, how much of it is lifestyle induced and how much of it is hormone? And it might be a combination of both. Because there's also other things too that when we start cleaning up areas before looking like diving deep into hormones, it's like, oh, actually, maybe it is that you're drinking 5 nights to 7 nights out of the week when you used to not do that. Or maybe it's you're not sleeping more than 5 hours of night anymore. Or, it's like those things that you're like, okay, like it might be some lifestyle induced things that, yes, are also impacting your hormones, but which was it first? It like might not be that your hormones are solely to blame. It's like let's back it up and like it might be lifestyle factors too impacting hormones which are impacting your weight loss efforts.
yeah, people want to jump the gun and be like, I need to be on these crazy supplements and do all these fancy lab tests. It's like, maybe, but uh,
Maybe.
it's like that is a whole topic in and of itself. Like you do have hormone shifts, right? Your insulin sensitivity does change going into menopause. Like your cortisol, your ability to handle stress on your body does shift. I'm gonna be like real blunt and honest here. A lot of people who are in this perimenopause state who suddenly can't lose the weight anymore, it's because they've been chronic dieting for like 20 years and it's catching up to them, right? And so like,
Yep.
yeah, hormones are going to start getting off. Your thyroid's going to start down regulating. A lot of times insulin sensitivity, again, like we're starting to see some more insulin resistance. A lot of that is driven from not managing stress, having too much stress on the body, from again, under depleted minerals, under eating, overtraining. And it just happens to catch up with you.
Mhm.
So again,
Yeah,
I
that
but that's a lot of them.
yeah.
So
Yeah. Any other like common warning signs that you see of like, and there's like the dramatic weight gain, which again, like that is a lot of people that I talk with too, is like, I'm not doing anything different. I'm still eating exactly the same and exercising exactly the same. And they really genuinely might be, it's like there are oftentimes are the lifestyle factors that are different that they don't realize, but sometimes they really are. And it's like, okay, what else is going on under the surface? But any other warning signs or common warning signs you see of hormone imbalances that you're like, oh yeah, something's off here?
fatigue, chronic fatigue. That's probably, I see more so even than the weight gain. It's like feeling tired all the time, no matter what. And it's like I'm sleeping 8 hours a night and I'm just waking up just exhausted. And that is obviously, it's not the fatigue alone that's going to impact everything in your life, because it's going to impact
Yeah.
you know, your cravings, your ghrelin and your leptin signaling. Maybe you start craving more sugary foods, maybe you exercise less, maybe, it's going to just trickle into other things that are suddenly going to impact everything when it relates to your health and fitness journey. So that's usually what I try to look at first. And thyroid is a big one, right? We have an underactive thyroid that's driving some more fatigue. Fatigue is very multifaceted, so I won't get into that because it could be gut inflammation, cortisol, a bunch of different things. But that's a big one. I think a more underutilized, not underutilized, but less common one is um, suddenly feeling like more anxious and depressed,
Mm.
experiencing mood swings. Like mood swings, people know, because it's like as your hormones, start shifting, maybe we start having more irritability, maybe we feel a little bit more crabby, right? Um, but people start experiencing some like anxiety and depression. I mean, you've probably seen this, and it's like, this is new. Like, why is this
Mhm.
happening? So that's a big one.
Yeah,
Um,
that's it. That's a really big one too. I mean, I have a lot of clients once we're working on getting their metabolism healthy again, they're coming off of antidepressants and things like that. And so if you reverse that, it's like, okay, why am I now all of a sudden needing or going to the doctor and they're like telling me I need to be prescribed, an antidepressant or something, um, anti-anxiety, when that's really just the band-aid approach. It's like there's probably other things we could do naturally that could help. Yes, sometimes medications and interventions like that are needed. Always work with your doctor in those cases. But it's like there's so much outside of medication that we can do, but that's a really, really big one I find too. And even some things like as simple as like a lot of women I work with are under eating or undernourished. And like once we start getting that fixed and better, they're less anxious. It's like, wow, that's so miracle.
Yeah, I mean, undernourishment is literally I mean, we'll talk about that. We can deep dive that all you want, because that is the biggest problem I see with people, because like you're not getting the proper, not only macronutrients, which you hear about a lot, but micronutrients, and those micronutrients drive serotonin and dopamine response, right? And so what people don't realize is another thing with just like a common sign of a hormone imbalance is actually gut issues, digestive issues, because like your serotonin's created in your gut, like 90% of it. And
Mhm.
so like your gut is off. Like when we look at hormone imbalances, people always think I'm just going to run sex hormones first. A lot of times we're looking at gut health. We're not running any hormone tests until we're running gut tests first. Like we're looking at, is there yeast overgrowth that's driving some of these symptoms, or just driving chronic inflammation, right? Um, so yeah, and those are going to drive anxiety, depression, and
There's do you know Doc Amen on, I'm sure you do. Doc Amen, he's on Instagram. He's a brain, he does brain scans, brain specialist. doctor. He's done an interview with or he's done brain scans on a bunch of celebrities, and one was Justin Bieber, and he was like he was so anxious and this and that, and he did a brain scan showing where and why that's happening, what that is. He was like he needed to eat more. We got him on. He was like we got him eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner with a carb and a protein and a fat, and his anxiety's gone. We did another brain scan, and it's like way better. It's like that simple. Like, which just I think people want to overcomplicate things, but it's like it was that simple. Just
Yeah,
crazy.
I think at least when it comes to like what I do, because we do use functional lab tests, like, but I don't have every single person come into my program and they automatically have to do that versus some programs it's like you have to. And it's like, but a lot of times what's going to come up is stuff that we already know we need to fix, which is eating more, stress, sleep, water, electrolytes, like stuff like that. It's like if you're not doing that, don't spend your money. And frustration going to all these doctors and getting labs, you know what I mean? Getting labs done and even functional labs, like they're important, but like you're not doing that. Like, let's talk first. Let's balance your macronutrients and then let's see what else we need to kind of address if it hasn't fixed everything, right?
Yes, especially because if you do like those labs can be so helpful, but if you don't do the other stuff first, those labs are gonna what are they gonna tell you? Or if you're working with the right like practitioner, they're gonna tell you go do those things first anyway. So
So
well, what would be like some of your tips or advice? Like, I would love for you to share with us, like how someone can optimize their hormones naturally. I mean, a lot of the people listening to the show, they're wanting to probably reduce body fat, improve their body composition, build more lean muscle mass, and then also just feeling better and longevity, balancing hormones. But how would you recommend, like, as far as someone who wants to naturally optimize their hormone health?
yeah. So before I get into that, can I talk about a few more things that I think
Oh, I'd love to. Yes. Take it away.
I think like I think it's important for people, like I want to just finish off on warning signs. I know it's so hard because I've already sprinkled in certain things that people can do, but like certain things that I thought were normal were like my hair starting to like thin out and like fall out, and like my nails starting to get really brittle. I was like, well, this is normal. I just have thin hair. I have brittle nails. Like that's who I am. No, absolutely not. Like now I realize like my nails are hella strong. And I'm like, no, that was so messed up, right? Like people are like, I feel cold all the time. It's just because I'm a girl. Like that's fine. It's normal. No, I mean, and that's definitely a sign. Sugar cravings, like constant sugar and carb cravings, like dude, like warning sign, something's off. Um, Brain fog, like not being able to concentrate like you used to, headaches, just suddenly having headaches or even migraines is a big one. We know kind of things like, oh, if I have low sex drive, low libido, it's probably a hormone imbalance. Like that one's a little more obvious. Um,
Hmm.
but like, or like I have a, period problem, like my periods are really painful. Like, okay, I might have a problem, but like all those other things are not normal. Poor sleep, insomnia, definitely sign of a hormone imbalance. Low pulse rate too. That's a really interesting one. People don't often understand is like when your pulse rate's real low.
Another warning sign.
But
Also the cold feet and hands. That's one, like, especially like I love that you said you're like, oh yeah, I'm just a woman. Like that's just so assumed that we like just naturally like we're just cold, but like that's actually a sign of potentially like not optimally working metabolism. Cold feet and hands.
I mean, I chronically do run colder, right? But I used to be like literally shivering, like wearing multiple layers, like and putting like a hot cup of water like in my hand just to like not shiver. Like I was like, okay, no, that's wrong. Usually one to play, right? It's when your thyroid hormones start, down regulating, you're gonna notice a lot of like hair thinning, cold hands, feet. Um, sometimes even your voice can change, which is a really interesting one. But, I think it all comes down to what we just talked about is like, let's first look at your nutrition. Like the first thing you want to look at before getting into anything fancy is let's look at your nutrition. One, are we under eating, right? Like we've talked about, that's probably the biggest one. And if you tell me I'm not under eating, I want to see your food log.
Yeah.
Um, As so many people are eating, let's say 1,500 calories, and they think that that's their normal. And they're like, well, it's not 1,200, so I'm eating enough, right? Like, and it's like, oh, I can't possibly be under eating. That's not the problem. Okay. Maybe it isn't. Like, don't get me wrong. We have a lot of clients that come in that are overeating that we need to fix, but like, let's address food first. And, I'll tell you a real simple way, go to tdee.net and go look at what your like perceived maintenance is, right? Like, obviously this is going to change person to person, but I guarantee if you go in there and you put your age, height, weight, and it spits out that your maintenance is 2,400, like, first of all, you're going to say it's wrong, right? You're going to be
Yeah.
like, no, like that's absolutely not correct. But it just gives you some insight onto like what you could be eating. Now, don't go and eat that amount because you might gain weight. That's a whole nother topic. Like, but it's only a sign that we need to eat some more, right? Um, would you
I
agree
think
with?
that's a really good point. Like if you do just go tdee.net and go look at the calculator, I think it's tdeecalculator.net, go do that. And you really will. Like I've talked to so many women who it spits it out and they're like, there is no way that that's right. And I'm like, it's still a calculation. It's not going to be 100% accurate. Like give or take your activity that day, whatever. It's a number, a calculation, but it's probably close. And they just like can't wrap their minds around it. Cause I mean, I think of one client in particular right now who like she was tracking macros, super diligent about it, like strength training consistently and eating close to 2,000 calories. So nothing like, compared to other women that I'm sure we work with too, are eating like 900 calories. Not bad at all, right? Like you would think that, oh, she's eating more than enough. Well, her TDE was 2,600 calories. So we got her back up. We got her up to 2,600. She starts building more lean muscle mass. And then now when we're ready to put her into a fat loss phase, she actually has somewhere to go and she can go and actually still be eating more than 2,000 calories and actually seeing fat loss and weight loss. So it's like, she was like, oh my gosh, I just never could wrap my head around the fact that like, that's actually my maintenance calories. 2,600. Like just as women, I feel like, especially anything over the 2,000 mark, we're like, no, no, not possible.
Those people too when they start reverse dieting and they're like, wait, we're going higher. Wait, higher, more. You're like, yeah, like, and they're like, how are you feeling? And they're like, great. How's your body composition? The same. Cool. Then why can't we keep adding? Like, they're like, oh, I
Yeah.
guess I thought about it like that.
Yes, absolutely.
But I think that's always going to be number one, right? Like, are we eating enough? And then obviously, second thing is like, what kinds of food are we eating? Like real simple here. Like some people are like, no, I'm eating really well, but then when you look at their food logs, it's all these low calorie, foods with all these different chemicals and all this different crap. They're not balancing the macronutrients appropriately, right? They're eating the same calories, but their protein is real low, which is obviously impacting their blood sugar, which that's one of the biggest things is like blood sugar regulation, right? To optimize fat loss. If you're not eating protein and you're not eating fiber, guys, like you're probably going to have some sort of hormone imbalance, right? Without getting into the nitty gritty of where your progesterone's at, right? Like it's, we have to definitely be aiming for, everyone will have a little bit different calculation, but anywhere from 0.6 to 1.1 grams per pound for protein. And that's a wide range, depends on your body fat. Fiber for women, about 25 to 30 grams, right? Like look at those things. Look at those really diligently first. And then move on. Does
I
that
love
make
that you point out too the people who are like, oh, I'm eating well or I'm eating really clean. And it's funny, I was talking with someone last night at actually one of my community groups and I was like, I'm not going to wear my coach's hat right now or my nutrition hat, like unsolicited advice. I didn't say anything, but it was like, oh my gosh, these really healthy chips. And they were Quest chips, like the Quest protein chips. And they're like, they're so healthy. And I'm like, they're not terrible. Like they're not, like enjoy some Quest strips. Yes, they have like protein. So like of course everyone's like they're health food, but I'm like there's also so much extra stuff in there. I would not designate that as like, oh, that's such a healthy choice. And I have have worked with a lot of women who, you know, they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, I'm hitting my protein goal, but I'm having 4 protein bars a day, 2 protein shakes, 3 bags of Quest chips. And I'm like, no wonder your gut's a wreck. Like, I'm like, my gut would be in knots.
literally, they're like, I'm hitting everything perfect, but like I'm farting all the time and I'm bloated. Like I need to get some like food sensitivity tests done. No, no, girlfriend. Like, let's look at all the crap protein we're eating, right?
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, that's coming from this if it fits your macro world. And I'm glad to see that people are transitioning a lot and realizing like the impact that it does have on your hormones. And because when we are eating constant inflammatory foods, like it is going to wreak havoc on our body, our liver. Like if your liver starts getting congested, like it's gonna drive hormone symptoms. I get very passionate and I talk with my hands a lot. Um,
Me too.
So I think, outside of some of our basics, like eat more protein, have have fiber, strength training is obviously so huge, but there's such a fine line, guys, with strength training. Like if you find yourself doing all the right things, you're working out 5 days a week, you're eating even the right amount of calories, but you are overtraining, like your body is going to constantly be in the stress state, right? And you're actually going to start seeing negative impact on your thyroid hormones, on your cortisol, obviously, is going to be maybe not even high. You could actually be so low. Like you could actually be like so chronically stressed out, your cortisol starts tanking, which people don't actually realize is like a thing. They always just think it's high or
Okay.
um, but you actually will start seeing like muscle breakdown start happening. I'm sure you just talked about one of your clients, like, people can't put on muscle like when your body's just super overtrained, right? And so a lot of times that's what I see too, is just this fine line of like too much cardio, not enough strength training, or just training too much overall. Um, some of our clients see the most progress when we actually drop them down to 2 or 3 days weight training, versus bring them up to 4 or 5 days. If you are truly dealing with a real bad imbalance, like a true hormone imbalance that we do like find on labs and stuff like that, like sometimes we take away training 100%. Um, People
How
hate
long would
that.
you, yeah, I was about to say, how long would you do that for? Or like how long have for, I know it depends on the client, but
Sometimes it's 3 months, sometimes it's a year. I think when you're dealing with working with clients, getting them back to optimal health, right? A lot of our clients who, again, I kind of tapped on this earlier, that are having hormone imbalances, it's actually like we're looking at gut, we're going through gut protocols first, then maybe we're going through a hormone protocol. It's sometimes when we add back in training, their symptoms start to get worse again. And so, like, when we pull training completely, people will usually kick and fight on that. It's like, okay, well, like, just give it a go. Like, a lot of times people will lose weight immediately after stop training, which is great. That blows their mind, right? Because they think they're going to gain weight if they stop, just from that less stress on their body. And then we go through some protocols. They're feeling better. We're like, okay, let's start ramping up, workouts again. Maybe they start feeling really good, and we're able to keep adding on. A lot of times they start going back though. And so I've had one client, we've had to take away training for almost a year, just because her body didn't feel safe. Like it didn't. Every time we added it in, a lot of negative stuff came back. And then now we're past the secure point, and she's feeling good. We're able to work out again, putting on muscle, and so it's all great. But it, like, people don't realize, like you can't. I hate all these programs like balance your hormones in 60 days. Like, first of all, like your cycles, like it takes about 3 months to even like have that like proper turnaround time, but like it is a process. And people like
yeah.
really want to feel better, like long term, you have to look at it from a long term perspective, because sometimes that's what it takes. And it's like it might be a year you take off training, but if that means you can train for the next 20 years, like, would you do it?
Yeah, yeah. I know that like taking off training was like that is the hardest thing for, or it may be the hardest thing for me. But I know it's the hardest thing for a lot of people to like back off of all the extra training or cardio or whatever. Like mentally, you're like, that doesn't make any sense for me to be going in the direction I want to for my weight loss or fat loss goals. But it might be the thing you need to do. And the other thing too is like, training, like I would look at that as more like, the endorphins and mental health and then muscle component of like maintaining muscle and then cardio, of course, like for your cardiovascular and heart health. But with like, if you're looking at fat loss, solely fat loss, I'm like, really, like you can do that with nutrition. Like, really, like the training aspect being like, let me try to maintain as much muscle mass as I can during this fat loss phase. But like, nutrition is what's gonna that's the driving force. Like that's where a lot of times people are like, oh, I like can't work out 5 days a week. That's fine. Like you may not need to. And like if your nutrition's on point, you're probably that's going to get you where you want to go fat loss wise. It's not solely training. Training and workouts are not like as high up on the hierarchy of for like fat loss as people think. It's like, what else are you doing? But I would be curious too, like with your client who you had take off of training, that would be one thing that, you know, I would personally be like worried about. And then also like, how did you manage not losing muscle during that time frame of them not training?
That's a great question because the reality is you will lose muscle. That you will. Like there's no way
Mhm.
around it. Like that is okay though. Like because there's going to be plenty of time to build it back up. Obviously keeping protein like higher can help preserve muscle. But I think what people do not realize is if you have a hormone imbalance that is so wacky and you keep again driving your body into the ground until it starts to scream at you, um, it's going to take some time for you to get out of this. And that might include gaining weight. That might include losing some muscle mass. And it doesn't mean you're headed in the wrong direction. Like just because you gain weight doesn't mean that that's a bad thing. A lot of times,
Mhm.
this hormone imbalance, guys, you have to gain weight. Like that's how we have to balance it. Like people, it's so trendy right now. And it's like, we balanced her hormones and she dropped all this fat. That can happen. Don't get me wrong. But what people don't understand is the timeline too. Like we need to sometimes get your metabolism up, restored, time spent where your body like trusts it again. And then we can go into this beautiful fat loss phase and forever be able to lose weight more effortlessly. But like that in between is not sexy to talk about. Like, ain't nobody gonna come join my program if I'm like gain 10 pounds in the next 12 weeks, but I lose weight in the future. Like, it's just like, we have to be like, I hate to say this, but we have to be marketers, right? Like, that's not sexy to talk about. But it's important. It's important to address, right?
Yeah, and it is the truth. It's like you might feel like you're going backwards, but sometimes that's kind of what might be required is like that feeling of going backwards to go forwards. And the other thing, like I just try to remind, my clients starting out is like, how long have you been struggling with this? Because like we all, especially when we sign up for a program for 6 months or 12 months or longer, or whatever, it's like we expect in that time frame, and it's like to see certain results. It's like, but you've been struggling with this for years now, right? Like, why would you expect because you sign up for a program that like all your problems are going to be fixed in 90 days? That's just not how it works.
Oh, man, that could be a whole other topic for you in the right.
Yeah.
Like if we're being honest, like let's be super real here, guys. Like if you're going, even if you have no hormone imbalances going on, you're looking at about a 9 month journey between fat loss, reverse, and a maintenance phase, and maybe even another fat loss phase, like to really get to where you need to be. Because the biggest thing driving a lot of your guys' hormone imbalances is just like the fact that you've been dieting for a really long time and never giving your body a break. So everyone wants a secret to a healthy metabolism, right? Like that's the biggest thing. What do I need to do to have it? You probably need to eat more and not be dieting all the time, right? And they're like, no, that's not the case. I bet that this better mean will do the trick. Like,
Yes. Well, and the other thing too is like thinking that it's a linear journey of like, oh yeah, like if I have fat to lose, like I'll just keep dieting until I reach that end goal. And it's like, I mean, if you only have like 15 pounds to lose, yeah, you could probably go into a fat loss phase and get yourself to that goal weight in one fell swoop. But if you have more like 20 pounds or more to lose, you probably can't, go on this linear journey of just like fat loss, fat loss, fat loss, fat loss until you get there. You're going to plateau. And then you're either going to have to decrease calories more or you're just going to stay plateaued. And that's where most people are like, but I still have fat to lose. Why would I like increase calories?
oh, bless you. Yes. That needs to be like a whole nother podcast in and of it because like the periodization, I mean, and truly, I'm going to be honest with you. When I was a young getting into like all the stuff, I didn't understand that. And I would ignore when people talked about it. Like, if I'm being honest, because what I mean, right? Like, but like, yeah, you see all these people. I mean, I hate that we can get into this too, but like a lot of these people are on these GLP-1s and they're losing a lot of weight very rapidly. And they're like, well, but my friend's doing that and she lost her keto. That's a fairly easy one. Like, and she dropped all that weight. So why can't I do that? What you don't realize is not only the negative impacts, like if you actually look at blood work side by side, even for a healthy person pre-dieting and then in the diet phase, you're going to see thyroid start downregulating, you're going to see sex hormones downregulate, and that's even without imbalances per se. Like that is actually a good thing to happen because your body naturally adapts. It needs to survive, right? So it's going to naturally adapt by downregulating some things. That's fine. Um, but if you stay down there for too long, that's the problem, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Which is funny that you say, like with the GLP-1s and whatnot, like and people with those might be familiar, like the semaglutide, Ozempic, those things. And I actually just read yesterday, Jillian Michaels is a huge, very outspoken about her feelings about them. And she's like, I don't think it's an easy way out. She's like, the side effects can be. She was like, if it was an easy way out, she's like, I'd be the first one signing my butt up for it. She's like, I'd also benefit from it business wise because I'd be like promoting it, right? Like I would not be opposed to it at all. She's like, I just don't think it's an easy way out. And there's actually more and more studies coming out of all the risk side effects and then the weight regain as soon as people come off of it. And then also a new thing called like the Ozempic plateau, which is like just like anything else. People are plateauing and they are having to increase their dose, and then it just stops working and they plateau. And you're like, just like that happens with, any other diet that you're doing too long. It's like it's not the magic pill that people were hoping for. Because I'm like, I don't think there's no judgment from me. I'm like, I don't think it's an easy out or like think any less of you if that's what you want to try or do because it is an easy out. That would be amazing. I just don't think that it is.
this is such a controversial topic now that's important to talk about. But I think what people don't realize is, I mean, how they work is they work on, the receptors of your brain, which is great. It kind of limits a lot of that food noise. So you're not hungry. But like if you constantly are eating 800 calories a day, like, yeah, you're gonna lose weight and probably lose it quickly. A lot of that's gonna be muscle. But like what happens like after that? Like you are gonna hit a plateau at some point, but you're also just gonna start feeling like, wait a minute, I'm tired all the time. My hair's falling out. You start experiencing all these other hormone imbalance issues because your body's not getting the proper nutrients it needs to facilitate like a healthy metabolism of hormones, right?
Yeah.
Um, I'm not like people always think I'm super against it. I'm not actually for a certain person. I think it can be a godsend, but for a lot of the people we communicate with, it's it's like you're already under eating and that's why your metabolism stalled, and then you take this medication that further takes your appetite down. I've had clients actually on them that have lost zero weight. Like people think they only hear the
Mhm.
good stuff. It's like, no, I mean, people do not lose weight on it all the time because their body's just like, again, like safe place to want to lose more. But the big thing I see, especially with medications, dieting, all this stuff, is just the negative impact it has on you mentally. Because even if you lose the weight, um, you start developing an unhealthy relationship with food a lot of times. And then you start fearing foods because you're like, well, no, I lost a bunch of weight and I did it by really, you know, cutting out all this food and it worked. And then they don't know where to go from there, but they don't think the answer is actually to eat more. You know what I mean? And so that
And then they get scared of eating more food because they're like, well, I lost weight. So how the heck would I increase my calories or my food without gaining the weight back?
yeah, it's a tough one just to get over mentally. I mean, that's I think honestly one of the hardest things of being in the health profession is getting somebody to be bought into reverse dieting, um, and being okay with it. That is like we know they need it. They don't want to believe that's the issue. They want to believe it's some supplement, some lab test they haven't gotten yet. And again, it could be, but that I think is honestly the hardest thing to for in my profession.
I would agree. I would agree 100%. Like you said, people don't come to us and go us going like, "Oh, you need to eat more actually, and you may not lose weight right away because we need to get your metabolism healthy again first." Is not why they're coming. So once you're bought into that though and you are bought into the long term, like I'm like it actually is going to fast track you. It might feel like you're going slower, but all the times that you've lost some weight, plateaued, gained the weight back, lost some weight, plateaued, gained the weight back, that might have felt like the fast track, but it's actually the long, like what feels like longer. It's all backwards. It's all backwards, but what feels like it's going to take you longer our way, which is like, maybe reverse dieting, eating more for a period of time so that you're optimizing hormones and metabolism, is actually going to fast track you in the end.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes. Do you have any other tips that you would give for optimizing hormones
Yeah.
naturally?
Something that is a little bit more like underutilized, not underutilized, I keep using that word, like not talked about enough, is kind of the role that toxins play in your environment, and how they impact your hormones. And I think, again, this could be a longer topic, but like, I talked about some basics. Again, please just make sure you're doing that. But like, look at your environment and how much these hormone disrupting chemicals are in our life. And it is rampant, guys. It's almost scary. And I will say this, I like to take a very balanced approach to this. There's some people that are like, have zero toxins in your whole lifestyle because you're gonna die. As okay, but like not everybody can do that for one, meant from a like capacity standpoint. But it's also, let's be real about this, it's expensive. And there's a budget component too to just swapping everything out. Now your health is worth it. Okay.
Yeah.
But there's certain things like, an EWG app is really great. Like if you download that, I don't know if you've used that before, you can scan certain products and it can tell you like on a rating, is this a bad or is this good? You use that before?
Yeah, I've used that before. But can you tell everyone I don't remember what it's called. Is it EWG? Is that what you said?
EWG. There's another one called Yuka.
Oh, I think
Um,
that might have been what the one I used.
that
Yeah.
that's good. There's certain things like phthalates and parabens, and those are big ones. Um, More and more companies are starting to put on like, phthalate free, paraben free, and it is getting better, and the hard part is you think you're making the right choice because it says like those things free, and then you go on the app and it's like, nope, this still sucks. And you're like, oh, but I'm trying to do better, right? Like all I can say for people is like, let's start making better choices. And once we get that, maybe we can go into to even more clean choices, right? Um, but
Is
toxins absorbed very heavily in your skin. Um, and people just do not realize the impact of all this makeup and lotions and body washes and stuff. Just yeah, factor in.
bogging you down. Is that because I know that's like I love that your approach is like let's be realistic about this because if anything, a lot of people can get so stressed out about trying to just change everything at once. Would your recommendation just be like starting with one thing at a time, or how do you approach that in like a non-overwhelming way?
Yeah, I think it's a little different for everybody, but one, I think just bringing awareness. Like you don't have to change everything. Like just bring awareness to what we're using, right? And like some people, they start with their makeup. Some people they start with their body wash. Some people they start with their shampoo. Honestly, actually, one thing I like to start is a water filter for a client's shower, and just the water that they drink, which is a whole nother thing. Like if you learn one thing actually from this whole thing, like go filter your water, guys. Like
Do
have like a filter, and then
you
also
have any
filter.
recommendations on shower or water filters?
Yeah. So, um, if you want to like, as far as budget goes, like AquaTrue and Clear filter, and oh my God, I'm blanking on the third one. I can send you, but, are good for like, they're like, standalone ones. I personally have an RO system in my house. Like, I have a reverse osmosis that I hooked up to my sink. You can like I did a little bit more of an expensive one, but like you can get more affordable ones from like even Home Depot. That are gonna run you, I mean, they'll run you still a few $100s, but like as far as like I bought one, I think from Aqua Bliss is the one I have for my shower. You know, it was like 30 bucks. Like it's
Nice. How
uh,
often are you changing that out? How often do you have to replace it?
I can't remember. I want to say 6 months, eight
Okay,
months. Also, guys,
nice.
if you're listening to this, your filter on your like fridge ain't cutting it, guys. Like it not gonna fit, and when was the last time you changed your filter out? Like, okay.
Okay.
Okay, because that's a big thing I hear. It's like, well, I have a shower, like I have a filter on my water. It's like it might be good. It may take like some fluoride out or chlorine for the taste, but it's not. Anyways, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. But like That's one big thing. Plastics are a really big one, because like they mimic estrogen in the body, and like low levels of exposure over a long period of time can lead to a lot of hormone imbalances, insulin resistance, even certain things have been linked to like breast cancer, infertility. Um, so like the first thing I did personally was I meal prep, is I threw out all my plastic containers and I bought glass instead. I bought a glass water bottle. I threw out my plastic. Those are the things that were like pretty doable for me, weren't a huge investment. My cleaning products, I switched from, like Clorox and stuff like that to my favorite is oh my God, what is the freaking name? Clearly it's my favorite
Um,
name.
it's not Myers, is it? I know that's one.
Yours is good. I would say it's like in a better category. Like I
Mhm.
like good, better, best, right? Um, oh my God, free of
I
nature.
actually just saw a trick on it was on a reel the other day that was like putting your orange peels in vinegar and letting that simmer like for a couple days and then like take the orange peels out. And like that's very like antibacterial and supernatural. It's like, huh, I might have to do that.
Yeah, force of nature. That's the
Yep.
right thing of it. It's great because it doesn't have any like scents or anything. Um, a lot of people like fragrance is a really big like one for like disruptors, and especially if you're dealing with like allergies and stuff like that. Like look at the amount of fragrance that we have.
Gosh,
Um,
it's so hard to find. Like, I feel like everything you'll be like, it'll might say like paraben free and this and that free, and then there's still fragrance like in
mhm.
everything.
That's the biggest one where like the like the apps are gonna like trigger like, oh, this sucks is because it has fragrance. It's like, okay, is it the worst thing in the world? Like, no, like you made a step in the right direction. Like we can find stuff that's super fragrance free too, um, but yeah, that's probably the biggest ones is like outside of obviously our nutrition, our quality of our nutrition, whole foods, fiber, water, sleep, stress. I think again, sleep or stress, but like it's ditch the plastic, start filtering your water, um, and start looking at just like different like cleaning products and makeup products. Cleaning products is an easier one. Dish soap, laundry detergent, like even something like laundry detergent. Like don't buy the ones with the plastic pots. Like you put that in and those little plastic that gets you start suddenly having microplastics like in our
Yeah.
right. Uh, detergent, same thing. Like, those are simple swaps we can make that aren't super overwhelming. Um, then we can go in deeper. I'll say makeup's usually the last thing for people to change. I'm the same way. The way that I view it is like I haven't found a natural one. I use like better ones, like like Ilia and Sai, like are the ones I kind of like. There's certain like mascara. I'm not changing. Like I'm not gonna die because my mascara is not the cleanest brand on the market, right? I try to veer away from certain things like um, um, Mac products are very high in a toxin load, right? So like I'll use like Tarte is a little bit better. So those are my swaps, but deodorant would switch deodorant probably as one of the first things I do too. Like do an aluminum free um deodorant.
I have to ask you what deodorant you use because I've tried so many and I'm like, nope, we're going back. We're going back. And I actually, a lot of them, a lot of the more natural ones are aluminum free, have left me with rashes too. And I'm like, huh. So I'm like trying to find one, but I'm like, nope, we going back to that. What do I use? Secret. I'm like, forget it. So what do you use? What have you found?
So one thing is when people switch to natural deodorant, you're gonna notice you stink more. Okay.
Yes.
Everybody immediately is like, it's not working. I'm gonna go back. But actually, that's kind of your body's way of almost detoxing. And so it's very normal to smell really bad for a few weeks while your body's adjusting. Don't give up. Okay. Now one way you can kind of mitigate that is doing like a charcoal detox on your pits. You can find one off Amazon. And so doing some charcoal detoxing before you're going to switch out can help mitigate that a little bit.
And
Um,
you would do that before you switch out.
Mhm. Yeah, I do
Okay.
like, like Yeah, like before you're switching into like when you start switching, right? Um,
Okay.
so I do find that's helpful. Um, Native's a popular one. I personally use it. I have used Primally Pure is another really popular one. It's a little more expensive. Primally Pure is a great brand. It is very clean, but again, it might be out of people's budget for, certain products. Native's a good like middle ground. Tom's has some that some of my clients have liked. um,
I might have to give Tom's another try. I know I've tried Native. Native is the one that I mean I love, and actually a lot of them actually smell really good too. But that's it. Like would make me break out and like a rash in my pits. I was like, what the heck, man? Really,
yeah,
really random. Yeah. But I might have to give it another try or Tom's. But I think it was Tom's that I was like, nope, this ish ain't working because I stink.
no, everybody is really. I'm trying to think of the other one that I've used. Loom is I think the other one that I've used before. Sometimes it's just like freaking trial and error, man.
Yeah.
Like, you might hate it. I had a client go through like 6, 7 different kinds before she found the one that she liked. But that was really important too, because like breast cancer ran really heavily in our family. And so I really wanted to make sure that was one of the first things we addressed was just like that simple, like getting aluminum away from this area. Like,
Mhm.
so yeah, those are my
So good. So good. Well, when would you recommend like so I love your approach. I love the fact that you're like, let's start here first with nutrition, with toxin exposure, with like the things just in your environment and in your lifestyle that you can control. Because I think so many people skip that and jump right to testing and whatnot. But like at what point with your clients too, I know you said when they're coming in, you're not just like, hey, functional tests, testing's immediate or a must. But at what point are you like, okay, you're doing everything that we're telling you, or you're doing everything right? When do you like get further testing, or when do you suggest that?
yeah. So this is kind of twofold. And sometimes I have them get it right away if I truly feel like they have done all of the things and I want to know like kind of where they're at. Like sometimes I do have them get normal blood work done. With that being said, I ask them to run like full thyroid panel. Like if you go to your doctor, they're telling you just going to take a TSH and a free T4 and leave you at that. But like getting like, first T3 and getting a more comprehensive one, also with the TPO, like for thyroid antibodies, I think it's really important. A lot of people have like diagnosed or undiagnosed, like, geez. But like a full thyroid panel, a full hormone panel, um, and like a CBC, like we can actually tell a lot about like a client from just like a CBC CFQ panel. So like if they've not been chronically under eating, right? If they've been, you know, doing most of the things right, like we might have them go get some lab panels, right? Where we really dive in deep is like, hey, we've been working together for a few weeks. We're making some of these changes. You're feeling better. Like most of our clients, like almost nobody is going to say like they don't feel better. But it's like, but we're still not dropping the fat the way I think we should be, right? Or we're still like having some fatigue or brain fog that hasn't like mitigated. That's when we start to deep dive. And usually the first place we'll go, actually with at least my company, is we'll do what's called a hair tissue mineral analysis to assess because like those are your building blocks for hormones. Like it's not like a Dutch test is a really common, very popular like hormone test, and I do like it. It's great to also assess adrenals, which are really important because like if you are not managing your stress, and I say this from a stress cadet, like I am like I feel you, like your body is going to constantly be in the state of fight or flight and it is not going to want to heal. You can do every protocol in the whole world and nail everything perfectly and still not be where you want to be if you do not handle stress. Like, you have to manage that. That's my just like
Yeah.
actually something I'm building out in my class, like for my clients right now, is a whole nervous system regulation course because it's the missing puzzle piece for clients, right? Um,
Mm.
but yeah, that's kind of where we start noticing like guts, like we're still having some like bloating that's like we changed food around, we changed meal timing, we changed quality, and it's like still there. Um, that's kind of what we're looking at. The biggest one's going to be like weight loss resistance, right?
Mm-hmm.
HTMA, and typically I like to do an organic acids test to assess gut and detoxification issues, um, and just metabolic imbalances. So a lot of times people use what's called a GI map test to assess for like, gut issues. Because if you have rampant gut inflammation, you're in a really hard time about like you will have some sort of hormone imbalance. You're going to have some probably maybe weight loss resistance. It's going to drive a lot of your brain fog, your fatigue, things like that. And then once we do that, if we're still having issues, then we go into like a Dutch test. That's the way
And
I
how often are you like when you're getting that testing back and looking at that, like how much of it are you finding that you're having to with clients, go beyond some more of the natural remedies or approach, like finding how often or how much of the time is it like, okay, we do need, HRT or like something else like to step in.
I'm gonna kind of put like a random number because I wouldn't know it probably 10%.
Okay.
I low. Um,
Hmm.
maybe 15%. Because I think HRT has its place. Um,
Hmm.
so if you're starting with HRT and you're not doing all the other stuff, you're fighting an uphill battle. And so like I just had a client, like obviously I'm not a doctor, I will not take you off medications, but we talked about getting it off HRT and we went through it was strict gut protocol. She had a rampant candida. She had she had a lot of stuff going on. But like we addressed that first and then she eventually did go back on HRT, which is fine, but it started working, you know.
Mm.
He's a menopause client. But like that can happen too, right? It's like, um, I'm not anti meds by any means, but it's just like if you're not doing all the other things, you might feel a little bit better. You're not gonna fully feel better.
Hmm. I think that's a great, I love that you give that example of that client because like, she was on HRT, but then once she got her gut health in check and then the HRT actually became more effective because of getting the other things in alignment. So it's like nothing wrong, nothing opposed to like HRT when it's needed, but it's like, okay, again, like if you're not addressing those other lifestyle or gut, health, then what you're doing may not be working like it should.
Oh, yeah. That's the biggest thing I think with like thyroid medication. Like lot- God, it seems like everybody is on thyroid medication nowadays. And it's like, and people are like, but I don't feel any better. And their doctor's okay, well, we'll increase the dose. And it's like, okay, but like why? Why are we feeling like that? Again, like minerals are super important, heavy metal toxicity, um, gut imbalances, cortisol dysregulation. A lot of times mold, like this could be a whole top, like mold is a huge driver for inflammation and hormone imbalances. So, I think biggest thing is like, are we still not feeling 100% better? Like, not even 100% better, but it's like, you'll know when you works with somebody and they're being honest about their macros, they're being honest about their training. You're doing the thing, they're sleeping 7, 8 hours a night. Like if you're sleeping 4 hours a night, like let's not go straight into lab testing, but like, they're doing those things and they're like, I do feel better, but like I'm still like carrying this inner tube around my stomach. I'm still like foggy, still tired, like, and you've reversed that, that's really like go into lab testing because that's really I think going to be helpful for people to understand like that there is something else going on. Um, yeah, we kind of address it.
So good. So good. Well, thank you for all of your knowledge bombs that you dropped during this episode. If you were to leave, just to wrap everything up, if you were to leave people with some advice, I know you've touched on a lot of it probably already, but if someone listening to this is like, I think I have hormone imbalances, or like I am just struggling with like weight loss resistance, or like what I was doing before is not working anymore, like for that person who's like, I'm just struggling to lose weight and I think it could be a hormone imbalance. Like, what would your next step or next steps be for that person?
Yeah. So, start with the 5 basics. First thing, I would say start tracking your food. You don't have to track forever, guys. Like I know a lot of people listening are like, no, I've tracked. And it's like, just use it for education. Let's see where you're start cleaning up your foods, start having more whole foods, less processed foods, less foods out of a bag, you know, just aim for more whole, low inflammatory foods. You know, 3, 4, about 6, up to 6 vegetables a day. Like if you're not doing that, if they make you bloated, go cook them. Like it'll be easier on your gut. You know, start tracking your protein and your fiber. Do that first. Are you sleeping? If not, let's start developing a better like nighttime routine. We didn't even get into like melatonin and stuff, but like, you know, start going to bed a little bit earlier, winding down, not looking at your phone, maybe having some blue light blocking glasses, like, you know, get some morning sunshine. Like, guys, these are like knowledge bombs, and it's so simple. Like, look at that. You know, manage your stress. I know that is easier said than done. Believe me, I live it.
Yeah,
um,
what'd you say? The stress cadet? Is that what you called yourself?
That's me. Like I'm not ashamed. Like I still try like my very best. It is the hardest thing for me to change. I run a business. I've got a baby. You know, I've got a team that I look after, you know, that works with me. It's a lot. Um, and I think what people don't realize with stress is it's not like you're ever going to be like not stressed, right? It's like how can we manage our nervous system to better deal with stress too, right? Like um so, you know, look at those things first. Then I think you can go a level deeper, start looking at toxins in your environment. Maybe you start cleaning up cleaning products, dish soap, laundry, dishwasher detergent. Maybe we look at makeup, you know, aluminum or deodorant, body wash, shampoo. Again, you go with what you feel comfortable with. It does not have to be all one. Ditch the plastics. I will say, like, there's not really an in between for me on that one. Like, stop drinking out of plastic water bottles, guys, if you're getting all your water. And put electrolytes in it because chances are you all need some electrolytes. So like go put electrolytes in your water. Every one of y'all, almost 90% of you. Some of
Yeah.
our clients don't need it. Watch your sodium, talk to your doctor. But anyways, like do those first. I guarantee if you make those changes, you're gonna start noticing feeling better. Like it, I know you will start feeling better. So start with that. And then if you feel like also like ditch some of these freaking supplements, guys. Like you don't need 50,000 supplements just because it says like going to balance your hormones. Sometimes it is wrecking your hormones. If you are taking like a DIM supplement, it's so hot right now, like, but you have low estrogen, guess what you're doing? You're pulling and detoxing more estrogen from your body, furthering your hormone imbalance. Like watch the supplements. Same thing with like ashwagandha is a really popular one, but if you're like super tanked in your adrenals, like that might make it worse, like because it lowers your, you know, adrenal response. So like I love supplements, I really do when they're utilized correctly. But you know, we can probably ditch a lot of those.
Yeah.
Um, you know, and I think if you're not feeling better, you're still experiencing same symptoms, it's really important to work with somebody to address why that's happening, right? And maybe you get some extra lab testing. You know, also I think it's important to note when we do look at normal labs, we're looking at them from a functional perspective. We're not looking
Mm.
at values. So your doctor will typically say like, no, nothing's wrong. And then we come in and we're like, what? Yes, there is. This is all just like, you know, this all makes sense. It's just not warning enough to warrant like maybe a medication or, you know, something like that. So
Because you're looking at like optimal versus normal ranges
exactly.
for people.
So hopefully like that helps just like make it a little less overwhelming for somebody that might be dealing with it. I will say just take things one day at a time. This is not like you're gonna fix everything in 1 or 2 days. You know, also like we didn't even talk about this, but if you bet on birth control, if you're on birth control, if
Mm.
you're like we might have to do, you know, address some of that stuff first. Um, you know, and it's a process. Give yourself the time because I guarantee if you give yourself the time, it's just going to be worth it in the end. But especially like just be patient. Hormone stuff, bare minimum, you're looking at 3 to 6 months to start feeling sometimes even better. Like don't give up after a month. Your hormones take about 3 months to like cycle. Um, don't give up if you don't think that it's gonna work. And then you might feel better too in 3, 6 months, and then you might digress for a hot second. That's okay too. Don't get discouraged. Like hormones are really
Mm.
like once you uncover one thing and it might rear another beast, right? Like, so don't give up. Work with somebody, that knows their stuff about this. I think is really helpful. But hopefully some of the little tidbits I gave you today help point you at least in the right direction in a non-intimidating way.
No, that's been so helpful. Thank you so much. And for, I think anyone listening to this will feel that same way. As like, as far as putting one, like, thank you for kind of putting it in perspective on if someone is trying to heal their hormones and metabolism or balance their hormones, like the timeline to not get discouraged, and like there's, even if you're feeling bad symptoms or something, you might still be going in the right direction. So like to not get discouraged, and also just thank you. You've done just a great job of making it digestible for people and giving everyone somewhere to start. So thank you very, very much. Yeah,
Thank
absolutely. Where can everyone find you? What's the best way to reach you if anyone has questions? Where can everyone find you?
Yeah, my Instagram, well, right now it's Shannon Salge Fitness. In transparency, it is changing. It'll just be Shannon Salge. Launching my new brand.
Ooh.
The Wellness Paradigm is going to be our new brand. And so that's where you can find me in about 2, 3 weeks.
Oh,
um,
perfect.
Sneaky peek, one of the first people to know that. But or Facebook, I'm just Shannon Salge, Salge. I truly mean this. Like I know some people like don't mean like if you have a question, reach out. Like I might see like where can I push you in the right direction? Like, you know, maybe I have some insight for you and can at least steer you on the right path.
Yes.
You with
So
maybe
good.
so
So good.
yeah,
And I'll put it in the show notes, like where they can people can find you if you need I know you said you haven't quite dropped or released your new handle yet. But we'll put where people can find you in the show notes too, so they can contact you that way. But I really appreciate you and your time today. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your knowledge.
you're welcome and keep being amazing.